Sometimes I'll start a vlog after not vlogging for a week or so, and I have so many updates that my first vlog clip is like 20 minutes long, and I'm editing it like I have to just cut this entire thing out because no one cares and I have more to talk about. But then I realized I can just do like a life update video. I'm in that situation. It's been a minute since I've vlogged, but I have several updates, so I figured instead of cramming this into a vlog, let's just do a reset. Let's just talk about some things that have happened lately. And yes, I'm in the same outfit of the last video that I filmed. I know the sun is gonna go down in the middle of this. So just to benchmark some of the progress that I've made, one thing that you might not have even known I've been reading recently. Oh, this is my section where I'm talking about things I finished. One thing I've been reading for the past couple months, I think I might have mentioned it a couple vlogs ago, but not recently. I am buddy reading, or was buddy reading, this nonfiction book called Beyond Words: What Animals Think and Feel by Carl Safina with my best friend Bonnie. This was actually an old library book that I found at a library sale for like 25 cents. Had never heard of this, but I was the kind of person where when we were taken to the elementary school library, I beelined to the animals section because at that point I didn't care about fiction. I just wanted to read about horses or tigers, and this caught my eye. So the whole premise of this is Carl explains in 3 different sections focusing on 3 different species, disproving that animals don't have emotions or aren't capable of intelligent thought. So this book is divided up into a section about elephants, there's one about wolves, and there's one about whales, specifically orcas. This book was so interesting. So yes, it is partly science about like how animals' brains work. A lot of this is really just Carl going into the field with people who have specialized in observing these animals for decades, and he just sits alongside them and asks questions about the different personalities of the animals and what are some hallmarks of having been around this species for so long. And even though it does have all those scientific discussions about elephants' brains are this size and they have this special ability because of this part of their brain, it also is a lot about the nature and describing the nature and the animals in their own habitats, which was so gorgeously written. As you can see, I have a lot of tabs in this. I just learned so much about how this is not a human-centric world. We forget that even though we are like the top of the food chain nowadays, animals have their own lives that they live every day, and it's crazy to think about how they all have their own familial relationships and they all have opinions on what they think about humans. Like, they're self-sufficient, and the kindness that some animals have and the family ties. This just reminds you of how stupidly intrusive humans are into animals' lives and how much we just ruin their habitats. I also think it was so interesting, especially in the elephant chapters, talking about poaching and the relationship of elephants with humans, and how even in the wolf chapters about like deforestation and animals losing their habitats, like how much that weighs on them and generationally that effect carries down. This book was wild, and this book is so unheard of. I cannot believe I enjoyed it this much, but Bonnie and I were loving this. I definitely gave this 5 stars. I'm not sure where she landed with it, but I just immensely enjoyed this. The thing that Bonnie and I would say all the time is Carl has bars, because he's such a talented writer. He has more books on the topics similar to this about like animals and understanding more about their brains and how their lives work. I would definitely read more from him in the future. I cannot believe how big of a win this was. Most of the reason why I wanted to do this video was so I could talk about that. And Bonnie and I like to keep a nonfiction buddy read going, even if it takes months. So we had a couple options of things to read next. The one that I'll mention that was a runner-up that did not win, but I want to read eventually, so I want to talk about it, is Sex in History. This is actually a book from the 80s, so I have a feeling there could be a modern iteration of this that is a lot better. I'm just kidding, this is 90s. But this, especially in the first chapter, goes all the way back to prehistoric times to talk about the relevance that sex has had in society and how that slowly transforms into taboo, and you know, the things that I was not taught as a Texas schoolgirl who only learned about abstinence. So I just like to learn about how each culture regarded sex and how we came to be in a society that is so pure. But, you know, people consider us prudes now, especially like America compared to Europe. So I want to read this eventually. I guarantee no one here has read it, but I'm interested in this topic, so feel free to weigh in on anything you might have that you think I'd be interested in. So the book that we actually ended up choosing is one that is very popular. I have unfortunately a very bland cover here, it's just text, but we started The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, which is a very popular book. I know that this is recommended, Jesus Christ, from the mountaintops really, for any women or anyone who wants to learn more. I would almost call this self-defense, but not really. I'll just describe it. If you haven't heard of it, this book talks all about the prevention of violence and how to recognize the symptoms of violence and when someone is going to be violent. You can just learn the indicators and the signals that something is progressing into something dangerous, so you can learn to protect yourself or eliminate the fear of feeling threatened when something happens. I don't know, it's very vague because it covers a lot. Like the chapter that we just read was about stalking, which is something, you know, less common, but there's also ones about like when people don't take no as an answer, how do you combat that? You know, it's very rare that you're attacked by strangers versus someone that you know, but if you do, like, what are the signals that someone is dangerous versus someone who's just creepy? So it's teaching you things that should be inherently like in your brain, is what Gavin argues, but kind of like bringing it to the forefront so you can start to think and analyze situations that you might be unsafe in or feel unsafe in, and you can either get out of it or rationalize to yourself why you're actually fine. We are 168 pages into this in just a couple weeks, so we're actually flying through this one comparatively. The thing I'll say about this is it talks a lot in like lists of attributes and like, oh, if you want to see if someone's violent, you should do this JACA acronym and look at each one of those. And especially when you're in a situation where someone says something creepy to you, the last thing I'm going to be able to do is think logically about like, okay, is this attribute? Okay, did he do this? So it's gonna take a lot of training to get my brain to respond to things like this, and I almost wish it was more a book about case studies because Gavin's job sounds so interesting. This book was written back in the 80s, or no, the 90s, I think it's 97, but he was like the head of an agency that responds to people who are afraid for whatever circumstance, stalking or people acting violent, or even people who have had something happen to them afterward want to talk through what went wrong and how to prevent it from happening again. When he talks about specific instances of people that he's worked with and then relates that to the concepts that he's sharing with us, then it makes sense. But a lot of it is in the abstract right now, so it's difficult to see like when I would use that or what that looks like in actuality. I know a lot of people claim that every single woman needs to read this book. I'm not quite there yet. I do think it's interesting. As someone who has no brain cells, I'm just not confident in my ability to retain this. I mean, it's easy to read, it's fine, like we're enjoying it, but I don't know. Am I dumb or does this get better later? We'll see. On the topic of current reads, I finished the Fatphobic Readathon, also known as the Plus Size Readathon, so I was able to read freely, and I have so many things I want to read right now. I want to finish the Bridgerton series. I still haven't seen fucking season 2 or 3, and they're already still filming season 4! I'm on Eloise's book. I'm pointing because they're here. This, I think. I have like 4 more left in that series, maybe 5 with the novellas, and there's a bunch of prequels and stuff, so I really just need to get through those. Oh, the Spindle Cove series by Tessa Dare, I want to finish that one. In the end, I decided the one that I have to go for is the one that I'm most likely to forget what happened in the first book, so the series I'm continuing is the Realmbreaker series. So this is Bladebreaker, the second book to Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard. I am a whopping like 20 pages into this, and I started this maybe a week ago. I did read book 1 in July, and I've already pretty much forgotten how the book ended, so it picks up immediately where book 1 left off, and I'm already like, huh? But if you missed any of my vlogs where I talked about Realmbreaker, it's a Lord of the Rings inspired fantasy. It's like this ragtag team of people who all have to band together because there's this evil dude who's ripping open all these portals to the underworld or another realm. and all this evil is pouring in, and they have the tools and the bloodlines to stop it. So between them all, they're just going far across the world and different countries to stop them. Book 2, I am hoping will really develop out these characters, because I thought book 1 developed more of the world than the people. There's no romance in book 1, which I'm tolerating because I can see the threads of where some might start to happen. I wish the villains, there's like 2 primary villains. Right now they are such one-dimensional people of they just want to conquer, which I don't really consider a compelling reason to want to end the world, so I'm hoping that it fleshes them out a bit more. Even the main characters of this book, I think they're interesting, but I don't love them. Like, I think they're all very unique and I enjoy reading about them, but they just don't have that quality that makes me glued onto every page yet. Question mark? I'm very early into this book, still trying to struggle through, okay, what the fuck happened in book 1? I do want to read book 3. I know it's gonna take me like a month to read this, then probably a month to read book 3. And there's so many series and things that I want to fly through, so I'm having a really hard time with having limited time to read and how to dedicate that, because big books are so intimidating when I know it's gonna take me like the whole month to read. That's the current read. Fantasy wise, it's also on Kindle. I just caved and got a copy there, so if I need to return that to the library and just rot with my Kindle in hand, I'm not above doing that. I also totally forgot about this. This is so embarrassing. I'm about to out myself, but I've had this book sitting on my nightstand. It's called Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot by Mickey Kendall. This book has been sitting on my nightstand, physically on my nightstand, since February of 2023. I started this and got like 5 chapters into it. This is a feminist nonfiction read all about how intersectionality really needs to recognize like lower income black women from the hood and not just like white feminist problems. So this addresses like gun violence is a feminist issue because it affects women. Food insecurity is a feminist issue because it primarily affects women and children. So it takes a lot of those kinds of topics and rounds that back into how we need to expand feminism to include the issues that people think are lesser than, or we can tackle that with trickle-down feminism. Rosie, these boys just won't stop attacking you, huh? She's like, yeah, speaking of feminism. The reason why I put this on pause is because I was loving it, but I know something about myself is that when I read things, I'm immediately on to the next thing and I'm probably not even gonna remember anything. So as much as I can tab it, I wanted to put my best foot forward to remember and ingest the things from this book. So finally I just decided to pick this back up, and guess what? Pen to paper. I am taking notes on my favorite discussions from this book. I'm now on chapter 3. It talks about food insecurity. Having worked at a food bank before, food insecurity is something close to my heart, so I'm really excited to delve more into that. This book is so easily readable. The chapters are not too long at all. This book is like 280 pages. Not even that, like 250 pages. It reminds me of college to read with a pen in my hand again. I just love annotating, and this book just is dropping so many facts that I agree with and is expanding the way that I think. So I'm also doing a new thing where instead of like reading about things that I've heard of and been like, yeah, context clues, whatever, I'm writing things down I want to do more research on and trying to understand why things are called the way that they're called. So I mean, I don't want to name examples because some of these are probably embarrassing that I have not looked into until now, but Hood Feminism! I guarantee this is gonna get a 5 stars because I just am eating this up, and I'm so happy that I went back to it with a pen in hand because I think that's the way that these kinds of books, at least the way that I want to read them. So happy to finally have tackled that. That's it for the currently reading section. I do have one measly book that I want to haul. When I say measly, I just mean usually when I go to the library I come back with a tote bag full of things I'll never read. I just have one this time, and we are staying on trend. This is a book that I wanted to read for the plus size readathon. It was one that was high up on my radar, but my library didn't have it until I went back the month after, and they did. So I found a copy of The Next Best Fling by Gabriela Gamez. Hey fat girl, making out with a blonde guy? That's crazy. Who would ever have a fantasy about that? Blonde men into fat girls? That's crazy. I'm gonna send Tahada some fan mail. So stupid, who cares? Oh my god, okay. I don't know the ins and outs of this plot, but I do know that it is a librarian main character. Maybe they're both librarians. Oh, I remember I read the first page of this book. So the first page of it starts with him handing her a ring in a box. It's like her best friend that she's been in love with forever, and she's like, oh my god. But then it's like, do you think she'll like it? Her best friend that she's in love with is proposing to someone else. Just someone else. I was choking at the intro of this book. I was like, oh, it's giving unwanted side character. Been there. Oh, come on. Okay, well, I just read further into the synopsis and it turns out she's not gonna get with that guy. She's gonna get with his brother, whom she meets at their engagement party or the wedding or something, and then they're like, we're gonna fake date. We're gonna fake date so that people think that we're not losers, because the other guy is in love with the bride. So like both of them are down bad for the person and they fake date. You just pissed me all the way the fuck off. I don't know, I think it'll be good. I'm not a fan of fake dating. It's so irritating to me because it's not realistic. Who the fuck does that? If you do that, why? I think everyone hates the trope of lying in books, and that to me is another lying trope. It just is icky to me. It's so unrealistic. It's usually also, I've never read one that's done well. Maybe that might be my problem, but I just never am impressed by it. Other than like the Unhoneymooners, but that one is like, they're not trying to actually convince anyone they're together. But that one is more forced proximity than fake whatever. Okay, well, remember how excited I was for this? Maybe not. But Abby Jimenez did blurb this, and she's like the hot item right now. That's another thing I want to do. I have so many video ideas, but not the time to actually read and film them. I really want to do catching up on Emily Henry books because I'm like 4 books behind on Emily Henry. I really need to do catching up on Abby Jimenez because I have not read any of her books since the sequel to The Friend Zone. And now it's almost spooky season. I have books pulled out for spooky season and I don't think I'm going to get to read those. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to update on. Hold on. Genuinely, the sunlight is almost gone, so I have to wrap this up. But I got DVDs from the library because I'm trying to be better about watching movies. I've seen nothing. I don't like watching movies. I get bored and distracted. But I was looking through Letterboxd and I was like, I need to, if it's spooky season coming up soon, I gotta watch at least some of these horror movies because I don't like horror movies. And I've seen none of them, but I don't know, I wanna try it. So last night I watched Get Out for the first time. Have y'all seen this? This went wild. This is definitely, I mean, I would consider it horror because it's like, there were moments where just my stomach dropped during this movie, but it's a lot more of a thriller, I would say. I don't know, what's the distinction between horror and anything else? This is my first ever Jordan Peele movie. This is like the #1 movie on Letterboxd on the horror genre. I was glued to my TV. I don't know if the audience watching this has, like, everyone has seen this and I'm the outlier or what. I'm not gonna tell you anything about it. I knew nothing, so I'm gonna leave that up to you. My brain fires as if I'm reading a book, like, oh, that connects to that, and that goes to that, and that goes back to that, like a whole full circle moment in literature. I love when books do that, but I don't watch a lot of highly rated films that do that. I watch a lot of the Hannah Montana movie and Tangled. Like, I watch stuff that is not well written, you know? The way that everything in this movie connects back to each other, I was floored. I loved this. I was gonna go through all the other ones that I got. I got Nope. I got Hereditary, which I'm terrified to watch. And I also have Silence of the Lambs, which I might get bored during. We'll see. I'm gonna try and tackle some of those. But my camera's flashing at me, so I can't go much further into that. Quick update. I did watch Hereditary, and it made me sleep with my lamp on for 2 straight weeks, so I don't recommend that one. It's boring the whole movie, and then the last 15 minutes are terrifying. But it's not that scary. It's not that scary. I do want to say, hopefully this was an enjoyable video. I just wanted to do like random things that have been going on lately and things I've started, things I've stopped, things I'm thinking about. So hopefully this format was interesting to you. Apologies for the sunset literally during this video. In my head, it's still the height of June where I have sunlight all day. Anyway, enough chatter from me. Thank you for joining me for a random bedside chat. Hope you enjoyed. Gordo, any thoughts? I thought he was on the bed, but he's not. It's Rosie. Before the camera dies, thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Toodles.